Welcome back. For more on our coverage of Secret Service head Kimberly Cheadle stepping down, let's bring in House Ways and Means Committee member, Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. Congresswoman, good to see you. So Cheadle is gone, but of course the people who hired her and who wouldn't fire her are still there. So how do we make sure we get the answers we need on this important issue?
Well, of course, we're putting together a task force. The speaker is going to be bipartisan to make sure we get to the bottom of it. But again, when we look at who's running our very important law enforcement agencies, whether it's the Department of Justice, FBI, CIA, all these agencies, the most powerful in the world, we see problems at the top, and we need to use our oversight function as members of Congress and in the House to actually look into these agencies. It's a problem. It's why Americans don't feel confident about our system of justice. Our justice system is failing them, and a lot of people think there's very little justice in our justice system, and they're not wrong.
Congresswoman, you called to enact the 25th Amendment back in February. You were one of the first. And so now we're in a situation where the president has said, OK, I'm not moving forward with my campaign. But you have to wonder if he's not well enough to do that. Is he well enough to serve out his term? Where do we stand? And are more people joining along with you saying he might not be well enough?
Well, I think some are. That was exactly my point. When Robert Hur put out his report stating that Joe Biden was forgetful and was not able to stand trial, I wrote to Merrick Garland and said it is now time to start the 25th Amendment proceedings through the cabinet. Joe Biden, if he can't stand trial, he cannot be commander-in-chief. He cannot be the president of the United States. This is the most important job in the world. And to have someone that's that compromised and that incapable of doing that job, he must be taken out by his own cabinet. But they continued, as did Kamala Harris. They perpetuated this cover-up, this lie about Joe Biden's condition. We saw it laid bare in the debate. We saw Joe Biden faltering. We've continued to see him decline even more rapidly than he did in the first couple of years. It's getting worse. And now you see a recalcitrant, stubborn Joe Biden who does not want to leave the presidency. Is it Joe Biden? Is it Jill? Is it Jim? Is it Hunter? Is it the family that has lived off the largesse of being in public office because of Joe Biden for the last 50 years? They're making money. What are the Democrats going to do? Keep Joe Biden in there and have him falter? I know, actually, they probably want him out. And so I'm doing this. This is not a Republican desire. This is a desire to stand up for the American people. This guy cannot be the president, make the critical decisions. We have wars raging in Israel every single day. People have forgotten about that. I met with hostages today. Their families are still in harm's way. We don't even know if some of them are alive. We have a war in Europe. We have China on the march. We have a president who's talking about energy, made in China policies that is hurting Americans, hurting American businesses. And as a small business owner from upstate New York, this is devastating to us, and this is problematic. He needs to resign. He needs to move on, and they've got to stop the cover-up.
Well, you mentioned the presidency is the most important job in the world. So as we push forward to November, President Trump, the polls are showing still a pretty significant lead in favor for the former president. But is there a worry among some Republicans that you're a little bit too overconfident heading into November?
Oh, absolutely. I, as someone who's come through some really tough elections, especially during the pandemic election of 2020, I think that overconfidence is a fool's notion. Look, they are going to do everything they can to maintain power. They just deposed their democratically elected nominee, someone who got 14 million votes from Democrats all across this country with Joe Biden as a nominee. Is he failing in the polls and that's why they took him out? Is he incapable of doing the job? Is that why they took him out? If so, then he needs to resign. But they are going to do everything in their power at all costs. And I heard one of someone on your show earlier said that they will stick together no matter what. That is a lesson for the Republicans. If we are fractured and we don't fight off the vote harvesting, the attempts to get non-citizens voting in our elections, and people who aren't eligible, the attempts to have not one citizen, one vote, but multiple votes per citizen or multiple votes by non-citizens, they are going to focus on those things in the swing states, just as they did using Mark Zuckerberg's money in the 2020 election. We have got to be vigilant every single day. This election is not done by any means.
Last question for you really quickly. 3,000 migrants headed to the southern border right now. Are they aiming for the Biden window before it might close with a President Trump back in office?
Well, certainly they're getting everything they need. Then they come to New York. 85% of the people on the terror watch list are coming across the New York border because of the laws in New York State. One-party Democrat, authoritarian, communist rule in New York State, favoring criminals over the taxpayers of New York. They get all these privileges. You get a license, which is a privilege in New York, a privilege in other states. They can go anywhere in the country with that New York State license, and that's why we had the death of Laken Riley. Look, the New York Police Department was required to let this criminal go, an illegal immigrant with a criminal record. They had to let him go. This is why we have problems in our country. States like New York are leading the way to destruction, and that's exactly who the Democrats plan on putting in. The most left-wing person in the Senate is going to be their nominee, regardless of what her policies are.
Congresswoman, we just got breaking news that former President Trump will meet with Benjamin Netanyahu. Any reaction to that?
Well, at least he is. I think it's absolutely despicable that the Vice President of the United States is not going to be in the chamber. This is a decorum issue. It's a formality, but they know her base is the ceasefire movement, the anti-Israel, the BDS movement. Those people, we have a fencing around the Capitol for President Netanyahu or Prime Minister Netanyahu coming here because of these people. They're going to be protesting. Right. They're expecting danger. Thank God for President Trump for standing up for our greatest ally, the only democracy in the Middle East, Israel. And I'm standing there for them. We're praying every day. I wear this for our hostages. I met with the families today. Let's get them home.
Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, thank you very much. And we'll have more on this with Congressman Pat Fallon just ahead.